fall into big savings, all in the Ralph's app. Get 6-packs of Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or Canada Dry for $2.99 each. Then get delicious medium avocados for 99 cents each, all with your card and a digital coupon. Shop these deals at your local Ralph's, less than 5 miles away. Or click the screen now to download the Ralph's app to save big today. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Prices and product availability subject to change. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
You know that fresh produce is the best produce. That's why at Kroger, we invest in local farmers to bring you seasonal picks that taste fresh from the farm good, like sweet corn, refreshing watermelon, and juicy peaches. So whether you're a delivery lover, a picker-upper, or you shop in-store, your local produce always tastes 100% fresh, or you get a 100% refund guaranteed. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Write that down for me, Saito. Write that down for me, Saito.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Write That Down. I am one of your hosts, Justin Knipper. I edit over at FightGameMedia.com. I'm a staff writer for F4WOnline.com, WrestlingObserver.com, and I'm back with Fumi Saito, Japan's leading pro wrestling writer, author, historian, pro wrestling historian, pro wrestling anthropologist, pro wrestling sociologist, broadcast journalist, everything. We're back. Today, we talked about Mr. Riki Choshu. This was long overdue, for sure. We kicked off our series on the one and only, very special, very unique Mr. Riki Choshu, one of Japan's biggest names ever, even still to this day, in different ways, not just for being a wrestler, but just for being what Fumi calls a, quote, kind of punch-drunk boxer past his prime. We'll get more into that, and especially on the second episode. But today we talked about his rookie years and growing up as a Japanese of Korean descent, which is a particular social issue, cultural issue in Japan. We talked about that early on. We talked about his success in high school and college as a wrestler, as a freestyle Greco-Roman national champion in Japan. He went to Senshu University. It's really important, really big school for wrestling, amateur wrestling in Japan. We talked about when he debuted professionally against El Greco. First match, he won with a Scorpion Deathlock. We talked about his excursions. Choshu went to Germany. He went to Montreal. We hear a great story from Fumi about the time Choshu waited in line for Kiss tickets. Be ready for that one. Also, a very interesting story about Karl Gotch and Riki Choshu and Choshu's time in Florida and why Choshu didn't train with Gotch. There's a very interesting story. We talked about Yoshiaki Fujiwara's famous attack on Choshu, 1982. Choshu going to Mexico, UWA, defeating Kanek. Later on, we had the Choshu had his own version of the pipe bomb interview on Fujinami. If you're not familiar, towards about an hour into the show, we talk about the famous Fujinami feud, the series of matches in 81-82, Choshu Fujinami, the history of the Riki Lariat, and later him resigning with his Ishingun dudes from New Japan, and we saw the beginning of Japan pro wrestling. Oh, lots to talk about today. Alright, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Fight Game Media Network podcast feed. It's on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Downcast, wherever you usually listen to your podcast. Please do it. It helps us out a ton. Alright, also I have a book out on Amazon right now, Stronger Than All. It is a digital match guide to all of the New Japan Strong matches for the first 2 years of the show. Alright, that's it. Let's get started. One of my favorites, one of my personal favorites, Riki Choshu.
So it's kind of like almost long overdue. Yeah, we've done jumbo through the whole career, episodes, the bio almost. We talked about, Inoki, we talked Old Japan, New Japan, I'm sorry, Giant Baba and Old Japan history. And we did the Tenru episode. And the last time we did the Japanese American wrestler in North American soil. And yeah, we did Tenru, of course. And by talking about junior heavyweight division in Japan, we were talking about Fujinami's legacy, as a result. And it's a long overdue that Riki Choshu is one of the most influential wrestling figure in last 40 years almost, right?
Yeah, he really is one of the ones we have to put side by side with all of the other names that we've done shows about previously, like Inoki and Baba Hansen, Jumbo, Brody. He's right there, and he was one of those few people to kind of walk on both sides during his career. He went to both.
Right, New Japan, Old Japan, back to New Japan, and even left New Japan for the second time and formed a group called the World Japan, Double J. Then after Double J collapsed, after a year, he started working places like Hustle and Dragon Gate, Rio Japan, and back to just teeny bit Old Japan and Legend Pro Wrestling, then back to New Japan again. Then he retired twice. We're going to cover that. And not just those little paths, but every time he did those, it's like there was a meaning and people understood him. And he as a rookie, he was every bit as elite rookie as Jumbo Tsuruta was.
Right. He had a similar pedigree.
Yeah. Well, I just looked, his real birthday, never faked it, but he was born in 1951, December, right? 1951, meaning he will be 71 this year. Oh my gosh. Right now he's 70. I mean, that hit me. It's like, he's like, not young, but never old, and he was a great athlete, always running around, just running clothesline and things, and always has, long hair. And that hair is really Choshu, the very first Japanese wrestler with long hair,
Yeah, styled long hair too. He did have it was the look back then, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, but when he came back from okay, we'll cover that. He was born in Japan, and people are probably, like a English-speaking world, that are curious about his Korean background. His parents came from Korea, and he's the second generation Korean descent, but he was born in Japan, and he does not speak Korean language. He doesn't. And a little bit of words here and there, and they ate Korean food at home, and the grandmother, his grandma always cooked Korean food at home and all that things. And but he pretty much grew up in Japan. He was born in Tokuyama, Yamaguchi Prefecture. Riki Choshu's Choshu, ring name, right? Choshu is an old name for Yamaguchi Prefecture.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that? Yeah.
Is it because it's kind of like that island shape? Like
Choshu. That's the same shoe, but every single Japanese cities had different name in the Edo period, when everybody had the samurai hairdo.
Right, like Tokyo was. Tokyo
Edo.
wasn't. Yeah, Edo. It was Edo.
Edo, yeah, right. So when civilized in Meiji period, you cut the samurai hairdo, and the women stopped doing the Japanese, hairdo and all this. It was only 160 years ago when you think about it.
Yeah, it's not long ago at all.
Not that long ago, no. The Perry, came from America, and then the black ship came to Yokohama Bay, and then asked Japan to open up the country, right? And sometimes you have to learn real history, And 155, 160 years ago, like 1890s, we still had this samurai lifestyle in Japan. Then 20th century starts. So the Western lifestyle is just only about last 130, 40 years. Did you? Yeah, it's like that's hard to think of, but it's not all that long ago, huh?
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, as an American,
Yeah.
looking at American history, America doesn't have much history at all. So I think from that period, it kind of coincides with the States' strange evolution over the years.
Right. But like in the majority of people came from Europe, England, Nordic country, Germany, French, and of course, it's that's what made America. But yes.
Yeah, I just mean the length of time. Like the length of time, there is this kind of parallel from Japan having to grow out of the Edo period lifestyle and kind of what was globalize, you could say.
Yeah,
really globalize and recover the economy.
I didn't want to say civilized, we were civilized too,
I don't know.
Open the country to the others. Only other country that Japan was friends with was like Holland for some reason.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was for trade reasons.
And a lot of the things came from Holland, Dutch culture, and introduced a lot of different things. And we were exchanging things, And back to Riki Choshu. Choshu was old name for Yamaguchi Prefecture now. And somebody, okay, I don't even know where to start, but he was born in Japan, in Yamaguchi, and the grandparents came from Korea. And the reason he had two different names was that the going to school is Japanese name, but he had his grandparents and parents never really switched the passport, that lived in Japan, but he was still Korean citizen, basically, technically. And Riki Choshu was born in Japan, but he didn't really change that citizenship until like recent years. And so that's the Korean part that the people, always kind of talk about, not being racist, but the very unique relationship between Japan and Korea and in Japan and China. Now that the two Koreas, North Korea and South Korea, right? And also there was a history way back in 1920s and 1930s, a whole Korean peninsula at one point for a 30-year period was Japanese colony. You know what I'm saying? And that's when Rikidozan came to Japan to be a sumo wrestler. So there's like a really rich, recent, actual history to some of these people today. Okay. Yeah. And Riki Choshu also, of course, grew up in Japan. Born in Japan, grew up in Japan. And he was in judo in junior high. And he started wrestling in high school. Not many Japanese high school have wrestling program. Most of the school have judo and kendo and all that, but he went to high school.
Would you have considered him a jock?
Oh, of course. Oh, even to this day, yes.
Just like a sports guy. That's his main focus, his main passion in life is training and sports.
Complete college jock type, like your fraternity house. You know what I'm saying?
Like a frat boy, yeah.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Oh, most definitely. In 12th grade in high school back in 1969, he won his first national title, 75 kilo freestyle. 75 would be like 175 pound. 75 kilo, the division. He won the first national title when he was in high school, 1969. Then he was recruited to Senshu University. Senshu University, they produce a lot of wrestlers like, Hiroshi Haseredo, Manabu Nakanishi, or Jun Akiyama, of course. Yeah, a lot of wrestlers came from that college. Anyhow, he was recruited to Senshu University, and his sophomore year in 1971, he won the National College Championship in 90-key Greco. So he did both freestyle and Greco. And better yet, his junior year in 1973, he won both freestyle and Greco in 100 kilo. 100 key is like a 225-pound class. That's like a real strong division, right? Yeah, 73 won both freestyle and Greco in 100 kilo division. And the year before that, he went to Munich Olympic in 1972. But
Jumbo.
Yeah, just same Olympic as Jumbo. But this is where it gets tricky. He represented Korea for that Munich Olympic.
What was the name he was under for?
Kwak.
Yeah,
Kwan. I can't.
Yeah, I couldn't pronounce it either. I'm going to look it up right now.
Win.
I'm going to look it up right now. Just the pronunciation. I couldn't pronounce it, but yeah. He was going under his
Kwang Un, I think.
His real name.
Korean pronunciation. There's the same kanji though that you can pronounce it in Japanese like a kaku koyu, you know.
Okay.
But in Japan he was
Kwak Gwang-un.
There you go. Oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
If anybody out there listening has Korean advice for us, please.
Sorry about that.
Let us know. Yeah. It's okay though. Yeah,
but that same kanji, Kwak Kwang-un. Okay, but
he didn't speak the Korean language though, right?
At all.
So how did he get on with the team?
Teeny bit that the grandma taught him, but he technically had Korean passport, and he won the Japanese national twice, 3 times by then. Then he couldn't represent Japan as an Olympic team, and the Wrestling Association people worked a deal that this is national college wrestling champion that was Korean passport. And then the Korean team said, he will represent South Korea in the Olympic. Then Riki Choshu himself told me one time that he was bullied during the Olympic.
How did he get along with his team if he didn't speak the language?
He spoke a little.
Just enough?
Just enough to get bullied.
I see. Oh, he got bullied by his teammates.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I see.
Yeah, because over there's a reverse racism too, because you are Korean, but you're pretending to be like Japanese.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like a reverse kind of racism. And then he had a lot of that in Japan too, in college team or the high school job type, I'm not so proud of it, but
it's very
Korea and Japan thing, right?
It's a regular part of everyday life and society that when I was teaching there, when I taught,
but that doesn't make it right.
No. What I'm saying is just that the trying to explain to the listeners how it's very regular. There is not just the bullying. I'm talking about just Korean-born. No, just the Korean-born Japanese.
Right.
Sometimes people use the zainichi, the word for it, but it's I don't know if that's
not the Korean-born Japanese, Japan-born Korean.
Japan-born Korean.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right.
But yeah,
and
so that's a regular part
of second generation.
Right. So every country has their own version of that, but
but that doesn't make it right.
No, not at all.
But it's there. And also Riki Choshu's grandparents and parents decide to keep the Korean passport, but lived in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So technically, he was Korean citizen with Korean passport. But to make a long story short, he was able to represent Korea in the Olympic 1972 in Munich. But so that's why you don't find his name in Japanese Olympic team in 1972. He represented Korea, and he went there as a Korean team, and then he ended up being bullied, and because it's like for Korean nationals, he's like Japanese sold out, Korean thing, and it's just reverse racism was there. But he experienced that all his life, Yeah,
and later, quite a few wrestlers from after Choshu to today are from the same situation. They're Korean descent, but they're second or third generation, and they live born in Japan.
Still had the Korean passport.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are directly involved with this culture, that these people, or if I were to move to another country, you would keep the culture at home.
Sure.
Yeah, or furnitures, the way mom cooks her, meal, even a little language at home. Yeah, of course. So Choshu were able to speak a little bit of Korean, but little enough that you get bullied when you really go to Korea, and yeah, it's just reverse. Anyhow, he did represent Munich, only the Korea, but when they went to Munich, so he's a former Olympian, yeah. And in December of 1973, while he was still in college, or just finishing up, that December of 1973, Antonio Inoki, Seiji Sakaguchi, New Japan Pro Wrestling had a huge press conference, announcing that Mitsuo Yoshida, his real name, Mitsuo Yoshida signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling to be a professional wrestler. It was like a year after Jumbo Tsura's debut.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Yeah, and he looked a little different. He didn't have his long hair yet, and he...
No, just crew cut, just right out of college, just wrestling team, and he was never a wrestling fan. I mean, pro wrestling fan growing up.
That kind of... I didn't know that, but for some reason it makes sense when you... Yeah, he wrestled that way where he didn't wrestle like someone who loved pro wrestling.
As a kid.
He wrestled like an athlete who just wanted to win all the time and be the best. That was the aura he presented. Yeah,
and doesn't really waste time.
Mm-hmm. No nonsense, no BS.
And if you remember the way he walks in the ring, of course, to your counterclockwise, it's wrestling, but he is always looking at, your opponent's feet, Step here, step there, step here, step there, and I'm not going to let you go. You know what I'm saying?
And he even during the ring announcements, he never makes direct eye contact. He's always kind of fixated, like you said, on the opponent's feet. He's always...
Because he's a wrestler. Yeah. The leg dive.
Sure. Yeah. It never kind of leaves his mind, it looks like. It looks like he's always looking for that takedown.
No, of course, he's a wrestler. And also, he is always in the middle of the ring. The other person is making a circle around him. You notice that?
I would often see him get frustrated in the match and call his opponent back to the ring and point down at the mat in the center of the ring.
Come here.
Yeah. That was that's the feeling from Choshu. You always got that. The point too. You'd like to point his finger simply either at the opponent at the mat. It would get the point across. However he was feeling.
Oh, it's like he's almost famous for grabbing house mic and say certain things, but it was never promo. It was more like making statement. I mean, like a believable statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's how maybe like a Western English-speaking world wrestling fans, have to kind of understand that the Japanese wrestling don't really have this storyline promo that much. Now they do, maybe at New Japan, but Riki Choshu always grabbed house mic way more so than Fujinami ever did, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, come here and do this, or, I'm going to get you, or, don't come in, or something simple, but it was like really effective.
Also, I feel like Choshu is kind of hard to understand sometimes, even in Japanese. Like the way he talks is very unique.
Tenryu's the same way.
Tenryu's the same way. Honma, who else? There's a couple wrestlers that have that gravelly, kind of mumbly voice where almost nothing is enunciated, and it's just you have to get a double take.
For you,
especially with
yeah.
I mean, you think you understand it, but it's not a language issue. It's more of an audio issue.
Yeah, but he had this natural non-verbal communication ability almost.
Yes.
I mean, you could looking at Riki Choshu from the way up in the nosebleed, you still understand him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like naturally pantomiming kind of moving, and when he's angry, he looks angry. When he's like trying to do something, he looks like he's about to do something. And he had this natural, move or something. But anyhow, that he started training under Antonio Inoki's New Japan Dojo right out of college. Okay. And he makes debut 7 months later, 1974, August 8th. That his opponent was Mexican wrestler El Greco. His winning of the finish was already Scorpion Deathlock debut match. Interesting, huh?
Where was that from? Where did he take that from? Somewhere?
Karl Gotch.
That's from Karl Gotch.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. That the Karl Gotch gave, Inoki German suplex and octopus, hold that. Karl Gotch gave Sakaguchi his atomic drop. Actually Karl Gotch came up and gave a lot of Japanese stars their signature moves that it's been overlooked. But you know what I'm saying? German suplex, how popular in Japan?
Backdrop suplex from Luthez.
Luthez, yeah. But the Karl Gotch's German suplex is a thing that every single Japanese wrestler tried one time or another.
Mm-hmm. Fundamental.
Beautiful. Yeah, very fundamental. And also that show you a kind of earthly you are, the perfect bridge to perfect suplex to, yeah.
It shows all of your strengths from not just your upper body, but your whole body.
And the time you spent doing the bridge work. Yeah. On the map.
You always, if you see somebody do a perfect bridge at Cork and all, the whole crowd will gasp and cheer.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It's great appreciation for it. It's there are some wrestlers who do train that hard, and the bridges are beautiful. So, but yeah.
And then there was a moderate version of like a Northern Light suplex or the Dragon suplex. Yeah, Dragon suplex that the full Nelson into German suplex that the Fujinami had, used, when he was young. That was also given by Karl Gotch.
But aside from the Scorpion Deathlock, I don't think I wouldn't describe Riki Choshu as a very flashy, very innovative wrestler in the ring. It was more about
of course, very simple,
winning.
Very
simple but effective.
Very simple. But I learned so much from it because Riki Choshu has Scorpion Deathlock and Lariat, right? That's it, almost. I mean, he has, Saito suplex, Greco-Roman suplex, but basically clothesline and Scorpion Deathlock, right?
Yeah,
And I learned so much from it that you only need 2 or 3 moves to be the big, huge superstar. The more movie you do, the less people remember. Really. I mean, you don't want to have 10, 15 different moves during the match. Basic wrestling, yes.
What was different was that every other wrestler had some strategy, some approach to what they were doing, and Choshu would just react as he was. He would react to and that's what made it feel different. Yeah,
so it's not really, he was never that technically scientific wrestler. Yeah, he can be because he's a college champion wrestler. On the mat, yeah, he's strong and he can do things with people with UWF style or whatever they call, you want to call it. But yeah, he choose to have his own very convincing, simple style, huh?
Very simple.
But he wouldn't become big, huge superstar for another 10 years. Let's go back to 1974, August, he debuted. White trunks, white tie, boots. Not black trunks yet. He had the white trunks and the white boots. El Greco is the name of his opponent. Very first debut match, he used Scorpion Deathlock to win the debut match. Then he was sent to Germany, to quick excursion again, right? The Riki Choshu too had this trip to overseas all by himself, and when he was sent to Germany first, the fall of 1974, and that wasn't the Otto Wandt's establishment, but rather he worked for people like Roland Bach, that more of an outlaw German company, and spent the entire fall and winter there. And the beginning of 1975, he finally went to America, went to Tampa, Florida, right? Then he was told to go to Carl Gotch's and then to train there, right? But there's two sides in this story. That one story says that after one day with Carl Gotch training, one story, okay? After one day, Riki Choshu quit, training with Carl, right? And the other story, I have to defend Riki Choshu on this one. Oh, I love Carl Gotch, don't get me wrong. But I have to defend Riki Choshu on this one, that Carl came to the apartment that the Riki Choshu was staying, knock, knock in the morning, right? Then Riki Choshu, the Choshu didn't answer. And so Carl Gotch left and went home and never, asked him to come again. And for Riki Choshu's story, that the training at the Corals, it's all conditioning. That's all, he already done that during college days. It's nothing new to him, It's all Coral teaches like a conditioning, like you make you do the 1,000 squat and hundreds and hundreds push up and hundreds of, the sit-ups and the rope climbing and all these, conditioning strength, right? And running. It's like for Riki Choshu, he's done all that during college days. Nothing new, right?
He's an Olympian.
So teach me how to wrestle professionally is what he was saying. Yeah, right. It's like he wanted to learn how to work.
Right.
Carl is not the kind of coach. He will just teach you how to the mat wrestling. Yeah, it's a more of a dojo shoot style wrestling a little bit, but the mostly conditioning all day long. And Riki said, I ain't doing it, right? And so there's a two sides in this story, that the one, that the one side say that Choshu quit, that the training, he didn't like Carl's training. Some truth to it. And for Riki Choshu's side of the story, it's like, Carl only train you, just want you to do just conditioning. That's not what he was there for. He wanted to learn how to work, especially when he was never wrestling fan as a kid growing up, right? I mean, professional wrestling was so new to him. And instead, that the Hiro Matsuda coached him a professional style. And he briefly worked the tag team with Hiro Matsuda as Mitsu Yoshida in Florida, the same period of time, the spring of 1975. You can find the match result from like old newspaper clip, or some people have all the Florida results, right? That you can find Mitsu Yoshida tagging up with Hiro Matsuda around that time. And what was interesting was that the rookie Bob Backlund came to Florida and had a match against the Mitsu Yoshida. Yeah, I mean, Bob Backlund, later on WWF champion, both being rookie. And interesting, they crossed paths. Then after Tampa, he went up all the way up to Montreal, Canada, all by himself. That's when he grew his hair really long for the first time, because he never cut it, for over a year. And the first time he had like a real long hair. Okay. In Montreal was the place he really learned what pro wrestling was like. Well, the English speaking and French speaking, right? Up in Montreal. He watched every match from first match to main event. Well, he worked the show too, but he still didn't quite get what you were there to accomplish. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Pro wrestling.
What is this?
Yeah, because in the college wrestling, you want to beat this guy as soon as possible, as quick as possible, as effective, like most effective way, right? But he quite didn't get the idea that why you would have to make this match last like 10 minutes, 15 minutes when you can beat this guy in 2 minutes.
Because he's coming from the real
amateur
athlete
background
side. He's logic. He wanted logic. He wanted things to make sense. He didn't want to suspend disbelief.
He was not a wrestling fan growing up, right? Pro wrestling fan. But this Montreal experience really, really educated him that what the babyface meant, and what heel meant, what babyface do in the ring, and what heels do in the ring, and what's the content of the match, and what should happen at the end, and why and how you can make the audience come back for the next week's show. And something really clicked in his head. Now he understood wrestling. Not completely yet, but he was there. And also he was so young, like just 2 or 3 years out of college, right? Yeah, he told me one time in a real cold winter night in Montreal, like a forum outside, he got in the long line to buy Kiss ticket.
Wow.
Kiss concert. Yeah. I gotta go, right? And it was so cold outside, so he had a peppermint schnapps in his denim pocket. Yeah. And he got on the line and bought Kiss ticket. It's like that 70s kid, huh?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. So that I had to throw that in there because Riki Choshu is like that. He was a college athlete and he wanted to become professional wrestler. He had this, traditional Japanese wrestling excursion thing. He was sent to Germany, and he was sent down to Florida, had a Kurogachi experience, Hiro Matsuda experience. Now he's on his own and went up to Montreal where he didn't know anybody. Oh, he knew Rougeau family, because they worked in New Japan a little bit. But in Montreal, not much English, not one bit of French. But he worked the territory and really start understanding what pro wrestling is about. Interesting, huh?
When he was in Montreal, who did he end up wrestling when he was there?
I don't know, Rougeau's or the Gil's Poison, who later on become Alexis Smirnoff, or I don't think he wrestled Vachans, anybody like that. Maybe younger Dino Bravo, they were there. Maybe he crossed paths with people like Edouard Carpentier in backstage. There's like the group of French, Canadian wrestlers that we have a hard time pronouncing their names. Right. I mean, Montreal was pretty big territory, recognizing their own. Yeah, Grand Prix, and they always had 2 or 3 different companies, wrestlers walking out and making another company. And there were always at least 2 major companies in Montreal itself. And people like Don Leo Jonathan come in and work for a while and go. And it was under the Giants' very first home territory, and after he came to America. And Montreal was an interesting place. And he spent, like 6-7 months there in Riki Choshu, I'm talking about. And then he was called back to Japan, in 76, I believe. Yeah. But he thought he had to cut his hair. So he chopped up the long hair he had in Canada. He is going back to Japan. So he cut all this. It's just like he came back like a rookie looking, like a real short hair, that the long hair, to be Riki Choshu, you would think you need long hair, right?
Right. That's the image that I get in my head. But
the 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, and going to 80, like next 5 years, he had this short hair, like a punch perm.
Yeah. It was kind of like a perm, little mini afro little thing.
Yeah. That and light blue trunks.
Yeah, or white, light blue, something. Yeah.
Yeah,
not
always had the
trunks.
white boots. Yeah, not yet, and it wasn't even using clothesline. He wouldn't use clothesline until he was programmed against Stan Hansen. Actually, Riki Choshu was the one who was clothesline lariated by Stan Hansen the most.
Really?
That's why he took the clothesline.
Ah.
Yeah, because Riki Choshu wasn't even in the main event then. Sometimes like in 19th April of 1977, Mitsuo Yoshida finally became Riki Choshu. Okay. That they changed the ring name, and then he's staying, and no more, he came back from overseas and becoming one of the main event cluster. Not quite though, because he didn't have the star look yet, and also he didn't work like this fired up, like a later Riki Choshu yet. He didn't have a clothesline yet. He did have the Saito suplex backdrop, and he had Scorpion Deathlock, but he tagged with people like Osamu Kido the most time, and Riki Choshu ring name didn't really click yet, Choshu, Riki, and when you have your rival Jumbo Tsuruta with English name on it and like a star thing, and Riki Choshu himself bummed out. Choshu, Riki, you think it's good? And he wasn't sure about that either. And for the next 5 years, he was basically mid-card guy, great athlete, good wrestler, and not much star aura yet. And he was put in, like Madison Square Garden Series, tournaments. He was in occasional main event as a tag team partner of Inoki or Sakaguchi. And in 1979, he won his first title with New Japan, that the NWA North American Tag Team Championship, title with Sakaguchi. And he still didn't have long hair yet. And he was like, wow, almost like a designated, seat was his sixth match of the evening, and Fujinami was already becoming a star then, though,
Mm-hmm.
And I myself didn't pay much attention to Riki Choshu at the time, and
Well, what's funny about it is Choshu is coming from being number one wherever he went until he got to pro wrestling, and that story that we'll get to in a little bit, well, when it's very believable that somebody like this would be fed up with not being in the number one spot, who's just used to being number one.
Because in athletic, like a contest, college wrestling, he always beat everybody. He was a locker room leader. He was a college jock, fraternity kind of guy. And it's just college jock, basically. Yeah, and always hang out with boys. But in pro wrestling, his role, like first 5 years, as I remember, Inoki in his prime time with his, Inoki Bomaye, theme music starts, right? The music and Inoki chant, right? I mean, like main event of the evening, right? Fujinami, wasn't even there. That Riki Choshu and Yoshiaki Fujiwara was the two seconding guy that guarding Antonio Inoki walking into the ring. You go watch, 77, 78 videotapes, that the Inoki in his prime time, the perfect hairdo, the kimono jacket with his music, and it's just people pushing him and trying to touch Inoki, right? And one side of Inoki, Fujiwara standing there, and the other side, Riki Choshu standing there, then guarding, holding people from, reaching out to Inoki, that he's like the ring guy, the perfect guy. But two tough guys, if you realize. One side, Fujiwara, Yoshiaki Fujiwara, the other side, Riki Choshu, and both wasn't main event star yet. And those were like a bodyguarding Inoki in his prime. And it's really interesting that both guys took that role and made it into his character, two tough guys in two different paths. Are you following me?
They seemed like they were two different sides of the same Inoki coin.
Yeah.
Because we know what happened after Inoki went on and Fujiwara went on to have his career, and his career went a specific way, which was parallel with Inoki, the more shoot fighting, less amateur Greco-Roman freestyle
but
related.
the Inoki was actually never shoot style. He was Antonio Inoki, really.
Right, but what I'm saying is that I think that if you look at Fujiwara, you look at Choshu, both of them are one part of Inoki's personality.
Definitely. Right. And Fujiwara went real extreme and took Korogach aspect of Antonio Inoki and went all the way. Yeah.
And Choshu went the opposite.
Yeah, more pro wrestling, New Japan strong style. Not necessarily submissions or anything like that, but more real fighter, fired up, intense, have strong, serious match type deal.
He'll slap you in the face before the match starts.
Intense, yeah.
Point his finger at you.
Yeah, and then nose to nose. Yeah.
He's intense, in the intensity of a sports game.
Mm-hmm.
It was believable.
So, of course, both believable, Fujiwara and Choshu, but a separate way. And what's interesting, fast forward a little bit, 1984, that Fujiwara became overnight star by attacking Riki Choshu before the match. Remember?
Riki Choshu attacking Fujiwara, yeah.
Yeah, Fujiwara attacking Riki Choshu right before the match
outside,
in Sapporo.
Near the entrance. Yeah,
nobody really was paying attention to Fujiwara until that night, And overnight he became like a terrorist heel, But that's another story for another day.
Very bloody.
On live television.
Something like that wasn't as regular as you'd see today. This didn't happen.
And also that was complete Antonio Inoki booking style that they did not let many people in. TV didn't know about it. So they couldn't shoot it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It was protected.
Yeah, if TV camera was right there waiting, that's not believable anymore. So Inoki never let too many people in. Not even boys sometimes. Interesting, huh? But that makes it look so real. Anyhow, that the Riki Choshu stayed for 5 years or so, was just as talented, right? Just as good athlete, or he almost looks like he didn't have drive to be a star. He probably was happy where he was, I don't know. But he wasn't really the main event until your 1982 angle.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say angle, but it was angle in modern wrestling term. But he actually had the second trip overseas. He spent 7 months in Mexico in 1982, with red knee tights like your, Masa Saito tights. But
that's right.
Red.
Yeah, he would wear those every now and then in the 70s, into the 80s, like an AWA.
Yeah, so when he traveled overseas, he wanted to wear that, And he beat Connect to become UWA World Heavyweight Champion in Mexico. He dropped the title before. Yeah, he dropped the title before he left Mexico. But this time he came back with long hair. He needed that. I mean, like one little aspect or a little X factor thing, I think, that the one more taste, one more little thing that he needed to be the total main event guy. And upon his arrival with long hair, he turned on Fujinami, in America, six-man tag team situation, who should be called, by ring announcer first? In Japan, main event guy would be called the last. Okay.
Right.
But in America, who would be called first? Would be more important person?
Usually, yeah, that tends to be the style.
Yeah, but in Japan, like that ring announcing that night, that triple, six-man tag team situation, that the one team was Inoki and Fujinami and Choshu, okay? Then ring announcer called Choshu first, then Fujinami, and finally Inoki, right? That that's when he turned on Fujinami. Why should I be called first? I'm the champion, and we are equal. And and he just this. Today's term, of course, is big angle, turn on your tag team part, therefore you're heel. But it wasn't that simple. It really, that he delivered this mic so believable, that he was frustrated, that he is not below Fujinami. He felt it was equal, and he didn't want to be in this trio, six-man tag team situation. The match started. One team was Abdullah the Butcher, and then Special Delivery Jones, somebody like Bad News Allen, somebody, okay, at the time. But this six-man tag team match against Abby's team only became the backdrop of this angle, okay? During the match, they started fighting, Riki Choshu and Fujinami. And Inoki tried to break it. And then the match continues. Then second time that they start fighting, against, in the ring, they try to break up. And so that the six-man tag team only became the backdrop of, this whole angle thing. But that's when people really noticed the importance of Riki Choshu's like a statement. That's right. What he was saying is really right. That he didn't have to be in hierarchy like below Fujinami. He's equally talented. He's every single credential he has, maybe even above Fujinami. And it's just that he was never on spotlight, right? Like Fujinami has been. And that's like people really went with Riki Choshu's statement. Like, that's right. He, that the opportunity chance should be given to Riki Choshu this time. And sure enough, the single match program starts. Riki Choshu, long hair version was clothesline, Riki Lariat this time. And people start remembering it. Right. Riki Choshu was the one who got the clothesline most by the original Western Lariat, Stan Hansen. By then, Stan left New Japan. He was always, he was already with All Japan side, okay? And Riki Choshu became the only person who uses clothesline, or I should say Riki Lariat, as a finish in New Japan ring. Nobody else was using clothesline at the time. Does that make sense?
And he did it. The Riki Lariat was special, kind of like how the Rock's People's Elbow was special. It was just a lariat, but he would always kind of wind his arm up like right before he would.
Yeah, right. And also step in, step back. He gives this perfect timing, right?
Mm-hmm. And he would kind of let the crowd know, hey, this is coming.
Right. And doesn't even, talk to a crowd like other babyface do. Well, he wasn't, but he
wouldn't even look at the crowd.
People had to pay attention to him in the ring instead of wrestler calling the crowd. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Opposite.
He didn't have to pander. He didn't have to beg the crowd to cheer for him ever.
That was him. And the people liked him that, just that much better that way. Yeah. Then Masa Saito flew back from AWA and joined him. And sure enough, that the following summer, I believe, that Riki Choshu beat Fujinami for WWF International Heavyweight title. There was such thing then. WWF, WWE, and New Japan still had the business partnership, and they recognized WWF International Heavyweight title in New Japan ring, and Fujinami held it, But Riki Choshu beat Fujinami for the pretty much first time. They had 6 single matches up until then, and every single 6 matches, Fujinami won. When Riki Choshu had short hair, that's a history, and now you're seeing different Riki Choshu. And the statement he was making, not a mic promo, but the short interview and backstage, Tokyo Sports, the Nikkan Sports, the Weekly Pro Wrestling, the Gong Magazine, the Weekly Fight, including myself there, I wasn't there that 82 though, but I'm talking about wrestling magazine reporters and photographers. They have short little, backstage press conference kind of thing, and you give question to wrestler like it's a sports event, of course. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, like a scrum. Like New Japan still does it. All Japan still does it. They have all the sponsors are on the wall on the little screen
with the logo on it.
Yeah.
It's not like it was part of TV show, but the sports page reporters and writers, photographers are there. They ask questions. What happened and how you feel, and it's not scripted. So it's done like sports, of course, it should. And Riki Choshu always gave real short comment, but he was saying things that this is what he meant, and it's like everything he did was really believable because of it. And it was like perfect single match, Fujinami against Riki Choshu. And the matches were good, always good. How many times they did that? Well, the next 30 years, they had single matches, of course. But this initial, encounter of these two, not Inoki, but they're like two sons, right?
Yeah. And they're both different versions. I mean, Fujinami is
different,
he's like the golden boy. I mean, he's almost like at this point, he looks like a mini Inoki, but younger, more like explosive. This and he's more of pro. He's more perfect for pro wrestling. He's more of he does a lot of things that are spectacle, like the Dragon Rocket, like we talked about last time.
Tope,
like Riki Choshu would never do a tope. He's not he wants to beat you up and wrestle.
He's done it a couple times.
Sure, but you know what I mean, though. The style is pure sport of wrestling into the pro wrestling world, and so never like deviating from that or never giving in to whatever.
And also, the way he makes the first contact in the ring, when I'm talking about lockup, the collar and elbow tie up at the very beginning, very beginning of the match, he does that so seriously. Well, I want people to go watch Riki Choshu's, match on the old videotape. It's the first lockup. It's so serious, that's like, it's like really fighting, that just another lockup and another day at work. But he goes in and the bell rings, the match starts, then he really has this fired up look in the first contact and you lock up. It's just that's his match. I'm hoping that's making sense.
Right. That's the typical Riki Choshu, which you would understand that, you would know that from watching him just on a regular basis, and what would make the matches, just the like lock up, but
putting pressure on each other, and
But what was special is when he would have these matches with, say, Fujinami, he would deviate from that template. He would go right. He's also the type when he would be really fired up, he'd go right after his opponent before the match started too. There's also
sometimes
he was always about the first touch. There's always, he was the instigator. It was a lot of in Japanese. There's that, you say bachi bachi. How do you say that in English?
Yeah,
like
I don't know, but bachi bachi.
Like that kind
bang,
of
bang.
Yeah, like just like crashing and banging into each other. That kind of bachi bachi style of athletics.
So he had something about that. You automatically suspend your disbelief. How's that?
Because it's ironically so believable. Because he was in the Olympics, because he's a national champion, because we listen to how he talks, you go, wow, that's him. He's not hiding anything. So
it was very, very interesting that way. And Fujinami probably the better pro wrestler of all. Smooth.
He looks like a movie star, especially around then.
Obviously better looking than Riki Choshu, right?
And for younger fans, I'm assuming like they would watch Choshu and they don't relate to a guy like Riki Choshu. That's like their dad. They want somebody that's more relatable.
Riki Choshu in his prime was so popular among male fans, though.
Oh, because he was like the man's man. for whatever that means today. I don't mean to say it in any other way. Just it's what the feeling was. He was really
take a look at his faction: Riki Choshu, right? Masa Saito, the Killer Khan, the Yoshiaki Yatsu, the Animal Hamaguchi, the Kuniaki Kobayashi. None of them's your, handsome guy from class.
If you were walking down the street and Ishingun were just hanging out, you probably would just walk by him. They look like they're not salarymen.
But I'd much rather wear Ishingun t-shirt.
They were kind of like, it's funny, digress a little bit, but a lot of people, there's this assumption that UWFI influenced the NWO, but when I think about Ishingun
it's more NWO, huh?
Way more NWO. It's more pro wrestling, the attitude, or like you could say like Bullet Club or, Suzuki Gun.
Today's Bullet Club. Yeah, Suzuki Gun. Oh,
like
very
cool. There's also the cool heel, the birth of the cool heel.
Yeah, I think so.
Because, and it was also, we've talked about it before, but when Choshu was in the spotlight, he and Fujinami, it was kind of rare to see such a hot program between Japanese wrestlers. We were used to,
Right, because up until 1982, 1983, the main event was Antonio Inoki against American Superstar. Sure. Whether it's Andre the Giant or Hulk Hogan, Stan Hansen before he left. Well, yeah, every single American superstar, they came, the Dusty Rhodes, the Bob Backlund, the Dick Murdoch. It was always American superstar against Inoki. It's a very simple formula, right? Mm-hmm. And that's right. Fujinami against Riki Choshu took over the main event spot. That's Japanese against Japanese babyface against Japanese heel. That they didn't really label it as babyface and heel, but you had people choose, who you like, right?
Mm.
Of course, it's traditional babyface and heels, but they were not promoted produced like that. Yeah. Oh, it was basically, of course, Fujinami babyface, of course, Riki Choshu heel, but it wasn't like you're supposed to cheer for babyface and boo your heels. It's like people had, allowed people's freedom a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. The Austin Choshu parallel is something it's not exactly the same, but it is similar. It is that kind of, you're not supposed to like Riki Choshu. You're not supposed to get behind that attitude, but
he was a cool guy.
It's cool. Yeah. The instinct, that the way he kind of carried himself too. And by this time, was he doing much media outside of wrestling, or was he just doing wrestling by the early?
Wrestling, but he made appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he started appearing in other, the non-wrestling magazines, because he's like a talk of a town guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also the way he dressed, like a baseball, undershirt jerseys, or like a real, like t-shirt that he was really tight. Well, right. Like a big guy, right?
He was a big guy, and he continued to get just his chest was so wide.
In early 80s, you had this denim was, like a really hazukashi, what do you call it? Like you don't wear these belts, and like the big Texas belt buckles.
Oh, sure, yeah. I've seen the cover of Shukan Pro Wrestle with him and Saito.
Big belt buckle, like you're from Texas.
Sure, yeah, like and, he's
And back then in the 80s, you have your T-shirt in your denim.
Oh, yeah,
not outside, right?
And he's huge. Yeah. So it's noticeable. Maybe he's wearing a cowboy hat, maybe not, with his long hair.
And cowboy boots for sure.
It's a funny look, boots. Yeah.
Yeah, but and also like the Sassoon Joe Dash jeans. Yeah.
Right, he was in the advertisements.
Then big belt buckle, cowboy boots, and long denim, T-shirt tucked in. That's so 80s. But he was popular. Yeah. Really popular. And baseball cap, of course, outside the ring.
He's a badass. He was the ultimate badass for the time.
Yeah. And also didn't hang out with establishment. That's what made him cool.
Right. There was the way that was presented. Okay, you gotta do this. You got to go this way, and Choshu's, like you said when we were explaining the Gotch story, he's going to do what he's going to do. Choshu is going to do...
and even against God of Wrestling Koro Gotch, if you're a young boy coming from New Japan, dojo, and then you're in your excursion, and you're supposed to be training at the Koro Gotch's house, and that's fine that he went there for a couple of days and said, fuck it, excuse my language, that he was like in amateur days in college, workout that he'd done it all, and it's like nothing new. Teach me how to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what you do at Koro Gotch's house. And instead, Hiro Matsuda taught him how to work, But so there's the reality to this story, It's not like he ran away from Koro Gotch's training. And Koro Gotch was doing what he had to do, too. So, very interesting, right? And also, back to this early 80s New Japan thing, they were so serious about, Riki Choshu's faction that baby faces and heels never stayed in the same hotel.
Mm-hmm.
New Japan, top and bottom jersey, red and white, the tracksuit, and young boys and young lions and Japanese babyface all stayed in in a hotel. And Riki Choshu and his faction always stayed with American hotel. I mean, heel hotel. Yeah. They never traveled together. They had to order another big van for just Riki Choshu's faction to drive in, because you don't want to walk out of the same hotel, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then stop wearing New Japan top and bottom altogether. They had to order black and white top and bottom for Riki Choshu's faction. It's much like today's, it's like a root of today's Bullet Club, huh? Yeah.
Like
or
NWO.
Like that.
Yeah, cool heels. It's big mean dudes.
Yeah, big mean dudes.
Big mean dudes. They do what they want to do.
Never was on New Japan bus again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody traveled. Yeah.
But are we, I think it was like 84. Are we skipping anything? Because it was around 84 when he and those guys, they like you said,
they decided to resign from New Japan Pro Wrestling and form a new company called Japan Pro Wrestling, and signed the deal with All Japan Pro Wrestling and Giant Baba, and also Channel 4. So the entire faction, 13 wrestlers, migrated into All Japan. It was like a big, migration. Half the crew from New Japan left. All right, this is a great place to wrap up our episode today. As popular as Riki Choshu and his faction was, he decided to leave All Japan at the end of 1984 and start a new company called Japan Pro Wrestling. And they were going to have their own show, but instead they formed a group, incorporated the actual company. The company signed with All Japan and to be part of All Japan show for, I don't know, next 5 years or so. They had a contract, and also signed a deal with Channel 4. They all went from New Japan to All Japan in January of 85. We should start from there next week.
Because that's a whole different, there's a lot to unpack there too. That was it's a lot of things that happened. Choshu.
As a little preview, that Riki Choshu, his crew worked with All Japan 85 and 86, but he and his core group decided to go back to New Japan in spring of 87. Yeah, so that was another back and forth story. But now, 35 years later, we know more about it, what went in. Yeah.
And I think we're going to start next week when this is, I would say, Choshu would begin his peak period, his peak years.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And more leadership in the group, I think. And also that somebody who makes the big difference. Yeah.
He's a superstar.
Yeah. But those 2 years with All Japan is very important. Riki Choshu, Yatsu against Jumbo and Tenryu. Single match program against Tenryu, and it only happened once, but they had Jumbo Tsuruya against Riki Choshu just once in 1985 at the Osaka Joe Castle Hall, and had a 16-minute Broadway, and they had all the dream matches with All Japan. Then Riki Choshu, in March of 1987, decided to return to New Japan. But the television contract, the stop him from going to New Japan, and there was like a court case. We'll cover that next time.
Okay, I'm excited to cover all of that because there's a lot more. We got to cover the Maeda situation, and we got to cover Inoki stepping into politics in '89. Okay, there's lots to go.
And the Japanese fan knew about existence in the position of Booker. We don't call it Booker, but when Inoki was in his prime, he was the lead starring role in that movie, and he was also a director and producer and promoter and writer, and everything was in one in Antonio Inoki in his show, right? One-man show. But when Inoki left for public office for the first time and being a politician, somebody had to run the locker room, huh? Mm-hmm. You would think Fujinami would be the one, but instead Inoki chose Riki Choshu to be the booker. And there's no term for booker in Japanese wrestling, so they called it kantoku.
Kantoku, yeah.
Like a baseball kantoku. Yeah, manager, yeah. But the people still thought it was locker room. I mean, somebody in charge of locker room. But
that's a whole different era, and there's other. I mean, we've got to talk about the G1 too. I mean, that's Choshu's baby.
That was his creation. Yeah, G1 Climax. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He was an active wrestler and a booker, and also just like up and coming Three Musketeers, Muto and Chono and Hashimoto. How to produce these guys? And you already had Vader, Bam Bam Bigelow, Scott Norton, and all this strong roster in New Japan. And Fujinami is still there too. And how Riki Choshu handled the booking, and we'll go into that next time.
Lots to get into next week. Okay, let's wrap it up for today. So, okay, if we have questions or comments for you, Fumi, where can we find you online?
On Twitter at Fumihikodayo, 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 or Fumi Saito on Facebook. Please message me first.
And I'm at Justin M. Knipper, Knipper on Twitter. That's it. I'm excited for next week for all this Choshu. Do you think we're going to have 2 episodes or
maybe
3 episodes? Maybe we need
part 3, huh?
We might, because there's a lot to unpack next week. We just from 87 to 89. We got to talk
about
89.
all the way to like 2022.
That's current Choshu is its own. It took on a life of its own as well. The current
right
modern
and
day.
Also he retired once in 1998 and came back 2000 and had a 19 more career.
Right? he had an exploding barbed wire death match as well
against Onita. Oh my gosh, right, a lifetime ago.
We might we might have to do 3 of these. Okay, so I guess all right. Until next time for possibly part 2. Fumi, take it away.
So long from Tokyo.
RMA is a fertility center where next level science and proven treatment plans turn big dreams into big reality. Realities like me. Start your fertility journey today. Learn more at rmanetwork.com. rmanetwork.com.
Dial pound 250 and use the keyword fertility for more information. You'll have the option to receive a one-time auto-dial text from iHeartMedia.